So tonight I just wanted to get everyone together because we had a very different year. We really kind of lost an opportunity to have all of you guys out at the station, and that was a big thing that we missed, and we wanted to provide an opportunity to catch up and tell you everything that happened and hopefully get together and just chat a little bit and talk birds. So just some quick logistics. There's just a few of us here, so we don't need to be too formal. I'd like this just to be mostly a casual conversation. So if you have questions or thoughts, you can raise your hand or type in the chat. Trisha's there moderating that, so she'll can pop in for you, or if you want to discreetly come off, like unmute your microphone and just jump in, that's fine. There's not too many of us, so I'm not worried about us talking over too much. But unless you're talking, if you'll just go ahead and keep your microphone muted. My name is Claire. I've been working with ASI in various capacities since 2017, and Trisha, our executive director, is also on the call. So with that, we'll get started. So tonight, because some of you guys may not be as familiar with some of our projects, I'll give you a little bit of background on the Kramersfield Migration Station, and we'll introduce you to this year's crew, and I'll share a few stories from the season. And we have a couple people from the season on the call, so maybe they can jump in and share some of their highlights as well. And we'll have time at the end for some question and answer, or if it comes up in between, that's fine too. And just so you guys know, I should mention this first off, the call is being recorded. So the project, the Alaska Songbird Institute has two main projects, and the one that we're here to talk about tonight is the Kramersfield Migration Station. It was established in 1992 and formally under the management of the Alaska Bird Observatory. And when the Alaska Bird Observatory closed its doors in 2012, Trisha Blake and April Harding Skur formed the Alaska Songbird Institute and took on this project and the Alaska Swallow Monitoring Network. And so we're this year entering into the 29th year of operation. There's a huge legacy of data. The continuity is amazing. We're at the farthest north site for a banding station, and we're really have a really special situation here. We're situated 5 minutes from downtown Fairbanks, and the access to the public, to tourists, to schools, to each other provides great opportunities to have hands-on science connected to our community. So why do we do this project? Why do we care? Why have we been doing it 29 years? Well, from a research perspective, there's a lot to learn. Some of the kind of key questions we think about are timing of migration and how bird populations are changing and changes in productivity. But then we touch back on that accessibility. And it's not too often that you have a chance to see such an amazing bird in the hand up close and have a real opportunity to participate in science and to just learn about birds. You can take it as shallow or as deep as you want. We have access to visitors, to tours. We have everything from professional trainings to internships, apprenticeships, and field trips. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to reach out to you guys tonight, because that was sorely missing this year. We lost a big opportunity to connect with you guys. So here we are at Kramersfield. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Kramersfield Migration Station. So it's in the name, Kramersfield. That's where our site is located in Fairbanks, for those of you who may or may not be in Alaska right now. And Migration Station, you'll hear me kind of interchange and go back and forth and call it the banding station. And so what we're really interested in is migratory songbirds. So our target population are songbirds that are migrating in the spring or the fall. So they're moving through, and our objective is to capture a small sample and learn something from them. So how do we catch them? We use a thing called a mist net. It's a special trap specifically designed for songbirds. And we have this picture here. And I posed a little question. How many mist nets do you guys think are in this picture? So to give you a little clue, a mist net is kind of like a volleyball net. There's 2 poles at either end and this fine microfilament mesh. So we can just see the edge of one on the far right here. So you can see that nice dark mesh. I don't know if you can see my cursor here. Here's the edge of a net, this nice fine microfilament net. And here's the pole. Well, mist nets are passive. And here's the second net. There are two mist nets in this photo. You can just barely see it. And in fact, I bet you can't see it unless you actually know it's there. And that's how it works. If a bird could see it when you fly into it, we don't attract birds. At this site, we have established nets, net locations, and those nets have been in those sites for 29 years. And we're trying to monitor the birds that are using the site and moving through on migration. So let's see here. I wanted to give you guys another look at a mist net for those of you who may not have seen it. So we'll take a little pop around here. Let's see. And this will kind of give you an idea of how a mist net works. So here I am, I'm chatting at you guys, and you guys see this fine microfilament net. I'm pulling a bag off to the side. You can see a pole here close to us, and then down the lane, you'll see another pole. So this net has fine extra material that creates kind of like a pocket. So see how far it pulls out. And then here's our little demo black-capped chickadee. So the birds don't see the net, it's completely passive. There's no bait, no lures. They don't see the net, they fly into it and fall into a pocket. It's kind of like being in a hammock. And it's safe. These mist nets have been designed for birds and been used for years. And our goal is to capture the birds safely unharmed and release them after collecting some data. And so once we capture the bird, excuse my back and forth a little bit, guys. Bird comes to the station and we process it. This is the part where we collect data. So to give you a little insight, since I have the ability to show you things. Let's see here. Every bird that we catch goes to the banding station, to our headquarters. And so you'll see here we have a little setup. So what you'll see in front of me, you guys can still see my mouse. We have canisters with various sizes of bands. Every bird's leg size is different, and we want to place a band that fits perfectly. And we'll get to why we put a band on them very shortly. And then we have here a little leg gauge, and this is a tool that we use to measure the bird's leg to make sure we're applying the appropriate size band. And then you'll see some other tools here, the pliers, which we use to put the band on the bird, scale to weigh, and then some calipers for making very specific measurements, like of the bill or of the tarsus, that's the leg, as well as a ruler for wing length or tail length. And then we have some cups here that we use to place the bird in when we weigh them. And so we place the bands on the bird largely because it's a type of mark and recapture. So our hope is that if someone else catches our birds, or if we catch our birds later, that we'll be able to identify them. And this is kind of like a tracking number. So when we catch it again, we know who it is and can link that information to itself. And so every bird is placed in a cloth bag. It's kind of like a t-shirt material. It's okay to breathe through. It's a little quiet, it's a little dark. It's better than holding a bird in your hand. Right here, here's a northern water thrush. So that's a little brief demo. If you'd like to see the full video, it's on our virtual tour for the station. Give me just a second and we'll pop back through here. All right. So we have this station, it's situated at Kramer's Field, and we use mist nets to capture songbirds. And we've just gone through how we band a bird and some of the tools that we use. So what's a normal day like? So a normal day, we get our crew together, we meet at the Kramer's Field farmhouse. It's really early, we only operate in the mornings, that's when the birds are active. And we gear up, we grab all our banding gear. And at this site, Chelsea's demonstrating one of our essential tools, especially this year. You may or may not be able to tell, but she is wearing full chest waders, and it's because of this scene here on the right. The seasonal pond is not quite so seasonal, and a third of our traps are operated in that pond. So it's essential for us to stay dry, to wear waders. So we'll gear up, we'll go out, we'll set up our gear at the weather port, and we'll open up nets and start checking them every 20 to 30 minutes. And that's a normal day. It's changed a little bit. We now have a new normal. We used to have over 50 volunteers, not 50 a day, but 50 different people rotating throughout the season, field trips, and that didn't happen this year. Very sadly, we weren't able to operate this spring, but this fall, we're very lucky to have the ability to follow the example of other research projects, as well as state and federal and local guidelines, and be able to kind of adapt our protocol to make it safe for both us, the community, and the birds. So this is a little bit what it looked like this year. So we have Laurel and Ken. They are a household, so they're not breaking some distancing there. And then there's Dave, one of our interns, off to the side. So one of the things that we did this year that's a little different, we did all of our operations outside, except for when it was critical that we needed to be somewhere warm. So in the background there, you see the weather port. We do have a propane heater that we would put in there. And whenever we had kind of high capture events, or it was too cold to be outside, birds would be stored in there, or we might have one bander inside the tent banding birds. But otherwise, it was all outside, all in the elements. And you'll see Laurel's very nice, neat setup here with all her bands and her scale. So like I mentioned, we're such a community-run project. This project wouldn't be possible without all of you and everyone's help. And this year we had to slim down to make it possible. So I wanted to show you the people who made all the magic happen. This is Dave. He was one of our intern banding assistants. He's also our fabulous map maker for the Christmas bird count. It's Chelsea Arnold, another one of our intern banding assistants. She came to us with a wealth of background and was fabulous to have. She's a chickadee whisperer. Laurel Devaney and Ken Russell, fabulous dynamic duo. Laurel has been a banding apprentice since 2017, Laurel. She's rocking it. She's measuring the bill of a black-capped chickadee here. And Ken's being a great volunteer and husband and taking data. And then here's my partner, Paul Leonard. This photo is not from the banding station. I didn't manage to sneak one from this year. There's a boreal owl. We don't catch those guys. He was our one other household volunteer. And then we had two banders this year. We were really lucky to have Laura back again. She helped us out in 2018 and joined us this year. Here she is with the green-winged teal. We don't ban teal. They're not our target species, but we do catch them occasionally because of those nets that we do have in the seasonal pond. And then here's myself, if you believe it to be true. Just my eyes. So some stories from the season. I kind of wanted to first share with you. You know, this year was a little tough. You know, we missed all the people we normally see, all of our normal volunteers and visitors, but we still had a little bit of fun. So here we are all masked up at our stations, at our picnic tables outside, and reading a little bit upside down. And despite the fact that we didn't have our normal visitors, we were still very lucky to have people doing awesome things for us, like these masks right here were donated from a fabulous volunteer. So we really appreciate you guys helping from afar. Despite everything being different, you know what? The birds still migrated. They still came through in full force. As I tell everyone, those bags that hold our birds, when they pile up, dirty laundry means a good day. So when we made these large piles of bags, so we knew we were having good days and the birds were moving. There's a little bit of a sense of normalcy. And weather was the same. We still had our normal challenges. The seasonal pond on those cold mornings late in the season would still freeze. Here's the net lane in the gully before this mist net was open. So you see the pole at the far end with the net closed. It hasn't been opened yet. It's frozen shut. So those kind of fun mornings where we're breaking ice and unfurling the mist net, that was all the same. And then we had some great fun this year with our migrants. We really caught some cool birds. I think one of the most exciting things that I was surprised about is we don't often catch Townsend's or blackpoll warblers, and we caught quite a few this year, which we were all very excited about. So the Townsend warbler here is the middle bird picture, and they have those nice, beautiful white wing bars. And we probably don't catch Townsend's very often because they like to forage on the tops of conifers, and our mist nets just don't go that high. So it's just not often that we catch them. We also have a yellow warbler here. Nice adult males will have brilliant red streaks on their chest. And then we have a female, Wilson's, to complement on the other side. This was a male that had a nice, brilliant black jaunty cap. We also capture routinely, in terms of migrants, lots of thrushes. Mainly Swainson's thrushes make up the bulk of that, as well as American robins. We catch just a few buried and hermits as well. In fact, I think we only caught one buried thrush this year, and we'll get to why we think that is pretty soon. Some of our smallest birds that we catch are flycatchers and kinglets. One of the surprises this year, we didn't catch a single alder flycatcher. So why that is, we're not sure, but we were sad to miss that because that's one of our routines. But we also catch lots and lots of ruby-crowned kinglets. They're our smallest songbird, and they're the smallest bird that we catch here at the station. They only weigh about 6 grams. So a nickel weighs about 8 grams. So if you pick up a nickel, it weighs more than this little bird right here. It's pretty amazing too, because it's one of our first and last migrants still hanging around. We catch lots of sparrows. We were really excited to catch quite a few fox sparrows this year. That's this bird in the middle. It's a very large sparrow, very powerful legs, spends a lot of time on the ground, and has a beautiful melodic song for a sparrow. They're typically known to be rather trilly, but their song is gorgeous. And then flanked on either side, the Savannah sparrow and this young white-crowned. And it's a little tricky right now because it's a hatchier bird, so it hasn't developed that white crown. This chestnut will turn nice, brilliant black with beautiful white. So I think one of my favorite moments from this fall, in terms of a little story, is our day of American tree sparrows. So we always look forward, kind of, to American tree sparrows here because they are the harbinger of fall. They're one of the first songbird migrants in the spring, and definitely one of the last ones in the fall. They have the latest pass through and the latest peak in terms of the migrants that we normally catch. And so when we first start seeing them at the station, we know summer is over and that we are well into fall. And so at that time, usually our numbers are starting to dwindle. So we're not catching very much. We're missing those big days and big peaks, and we're starting to prepare for the end of the season and snow. Leaves are falling. Well, late this fall, on a day that I hadn't seen one like ever at the station, which is one of the exciting things about this, is that every single year something is different. We were walking out early one morning, and every day when we walk out, we're always kind of taking in what's going on, listening to the birds, the songs, and kind of making guesses about what might happen for the day, like what the weather will do, making maybe bets on how many birds we'll catch. And normally we would have expected it to be a quiet morning, but the air was full of song and chatter and contact calls, and there were birds all over the path and in the bushes and in the gully, and they were all tree sparrows. There were hundreds and hundreds of tree sparrows in the seasonal pond. So that was highly motivating. So we quickly got to work, set up probably record time, open mist nets, and caught a ton of American tree sparrows, which was super exciting. because I've never seen so many at one time. And then by 10 a.m., is that about when they stopped the laurel? They were gone. It was like they'd never been there. So it was kind of a fun, magical migratory moment. So during those times when the station slows down, we really rely on our routine, residents that hang around all winter. They'll end up making up the bulk of our captures. And those, for the most part, are black-capped chickadees and boreal chickadees. So black-cap on the far right here, boreal on the left. You'll notice a big difference. Boreals are smaller, but they have a very, very small white, almost kind of gray cheek patch. And even like their bib is smaller. And they're very kind of brown and chocolatey overall, rather than those kind of grays, buff and white that black-caps have. Some of our misses this year in terms of like routine captures, we only caught one hairy woodpecker. We usually catch hairies and downies, but we just kind of missed them for whatever reason. We were really excited to catch an American three-toed, a fabulous resident that we don't see very often. And then we had a few redpolls. They used to be a really common capture here at the station, but now not so much. The cool thing about this bird here is that it doesn't really display one of the identifying features of being a redpoll. This one has no red on its head. It has no little black bib under its chin, and you'll notice its feet are bright pink. It's because it is a baby. So it was pretty neat to see a young redpoll. Another big surprise, we almost never catch kingfishers. We caught 2 this year. So that was really exciting. We couldn't ban them, but we had a good time taking a quick peek and learning what we could and sending them on their way. More commonly, surprisingly, than a kingfisher, we do tend to catch diurnal raptors every single year. We usually catch always at least one sharp-shinned, and we caught both a sharp-shinned and a merlin this year. And they're small enough and just barely small enough to be caught by our mist nets. And they are fierce, feisty guys. So here's Ken over here with the sharp-shinned, and then the merlin in close up. I think one of my favorite captures of this year in terms of unusual birds was the red-breasted nuthatch. They're becoming more and more common here in Fairbanks, which is pretty neat, especially for all us feeder operators here throughout the winter. But this little guy was a nice surprise. It's not often that we catch one. I think the last time we caught one was 2 years ago. In terms of other unusual visitors, Brier Fox set up shop here. This is not Brier Fox. This is a different fox at Kramer's Field. This is a cross fox. The Brier Fox found our station, and it's not unusual for something typified as a predator, like sometimes squirrels or weasels can be problematic at the station. And when we do have predators at the station, we'll close either the entire station or the nets that might be affected. And that includes those diurnal raptors that we just saw, that sharp-shinned hawk and that merlin. And unfortunately, unlike raptors that often move on, they're migrating, so they'll just pass on through and you can shut your nets for a couple of days and then resume activity. The fox hung around for weeks. And in fact, when we closed up there, we ended up having to close all the nets on dry land for, 3 weeks, guys. And so that significantly impacted our captures. So we caught far fewer sparrows, far fewer thrushes, which is what I was alluding to earlier. So it was really cool to see a fox. They're beautiful. We unfortunately, for the safety of our birds, had to alter some of our activities. Despite that, we had a great fall season. In terms of newly banded birds, we banded over 1,400 birds, which is great. And if you'll notice from this chart, yellow-rumped warblers, or myrtles, as many people call them, made up the bulk of that, over half. Look at that. And there's Laurel with a beautiful kingfisher. And we had about 31 species that made up those banded birds. We actually captured 35 species, but 4 of those went unbanded. So we caught a mallard, we caught a shoveler, kingfisher falls in there, the green-winged teal. So some of those kind of funky things that we're not really equipped to deal with. So our top captures, yellow-rumped warblers, they just have it on lock. They always maintain the top of the charts. Orange crown warblers, last year they were a close number 2. This year they fell to a more normal number. We just had really high numbers last year. And Swainson's thrush and Lincoln sparrow, kind of normally in our top 5. But American tree sparrow, that really busy day, just bumped him up into the top 5. So that's pretty unusual and pretty fun. And you'll see a nice yellow-rumped warbler here off to the side, displaying that kind of key identifying feature, that really buttery rump. But for me, in terms of the birds that we catch, the recaptures are the really exciting birds. So recaptures are really common in day-to-day. So when I say recapture, I'm talking about a bird that's already been banded that we capture in a mist net. So it's not uncommon for us to band a bird and then while it's hanging out at Creamer's Field before it moves on in its migratory journey, for us to catch it multiple times. But what I'm really interested in are returns. So return is a special type of recapture. That's a bird that was banded in a whole other season, typically another year, that comes back. And those are pretty uncommon. This year we had 12. And typically of those returns that we have that come to Creamer's Field year after year, or sometimes we don't see them for years and then they show back up, it's usually made up of black-capped chickadees, broiled chickadees, a lot of our residents. That black-backed woodpecker that we hear about at Creamer's Field, that's one of our birds that we banded a couple years ago, as well as the hairy that popped up on Boreal Birder a couple days ago. But we had some really cool bird surprises come through. So we had 3 different juncos that were banded in different years, and 2 of them were banded in 2018 as hatch years. And this is a bird that probably flies east across Canada and down the eastern seaboard, potentially as far south as Florida. And it comes back. And that's pretty crazy that we banded it all those years ago and it keeps coming back. And this gives us a little bit of insight and information about maybe survivorship, timing, the condition that the bird is in when it's migrating and its stopover behavior. And then one other big surprise and kind of mystery out there, we caught an adult yellow-rumped warbler last year as an adult. So we really don't know how old it is. It could be 2, 3, 4, 5, unlikely. But we caught it again this year. And so we know he's at least 2, but he really could be an old fella. And this was just really a quick recap, but really all of this is only possible because of you guys and the generous support of ADF&G. There are collaborators and hosts and everything. And I also wanted to share with you a special thank you. Some of you guys may have already seen this.
Hey, Randy Myers. We're here with the Alaska Songbird Institute, banding a bunch of birds, and we just wanted to say thank you for your long-term support.
Hey, Claire, I think you have to reshare your screen with us.
Oh, no. Thank you. Let's see. All right, there we go. Thank you guys for being patient with my clicking. And also thank you for.
Hey, Randy Myers. We're here with the Alaska Songbird Institute, banding a bunch of birds, and we just wanted to say thank you for your long-term support.
I just want to say thank you to Martha Hampton for Fisher. Thank you so much, Martha. You rock.
Hey, just wanted to thank our document sponsors, Michelle and Bryce Lake. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
I just want to give a shout out to ABR for supporting the Alaska Songbird Institute. Thanks so much for your support.
Hey, we're at Creamer's Field and we're with Alaska Songbird Institute, and we just wanted to thank our partners, North Pole Physical Therapy. Thanks so much.
Hey, Barbara Logan, thank you so much for being a continuing document sponsor and supporting the Creamer's Field Migration Station. We
Appreciate you so much. All right, we just wanted to thank our friends at Design Alaska for supporting us here at Creamer's Field and working with Alaska Songbird Institute. We have a little black-capped chickadee here, and he's banded just for you. Thanks.
Hi there, just wanted to say thank you to Jeff Walters for all your support. We cannot stop raving about how awesome you are. Thank you.
I can send a thank you out to our guidelines for supporting Creamer's Field Migration. Thank you very much.
The American Tree Sparrow and I would like to thank our dominant sponsor, Alaska Sea Company. Thanks, guys.
Black-capped chickadee and I would like to say thank you to Isabella Coal Mine for being such great supporters and the Creamer's Field Migration Station. Thank you, guys.
So maybe you're wondering how you can support the Alaska Songbird Institute and the Creamer's Field Migration Station. You can become a member. You can become an Adopt a Net sponsor, both of which we are ever thankful and are huge in making sure that this happens every year. You can also join a committee. Maybe you want to help us fundraise or be on the events committee, or you can be a volunteer. We need help with all kinds of things. And if you're into collecting some data this winter, we have a couple things coming up. We have the Fairbanks feeder count. Our first observation day is this Saturday, and we'll have a couple other observation days throughout the winter. And that's just as simple as observing the birds at your feeder. And you can download a form and get a little more information about how that works on our website for all of these things. And I've heard a rumor that the Christmas bird count is happening this year. So we need observers to do the most extreme Christmas bird count in North America. It's the shortest, coldest, but I think most fun. So with that, I thank you guys for your time and attention. And if we just want to open up the floor for any questions about the season or anything else, we can catch up and hear what's going on.
Claire, there is one question from Rick in the chat about the most shocking or rare bird that you caught.
Sorry, can you say it one more time, Tricia?
Oh, the most shocking or rare bird that got caught in the nets this year?
The most shocking or rare? I think shocking is probably very subjective, at least this year. Maybe Laurel has a thought, can jump in there. But I think for me, the shocking bird was when I was checking one of the mist nets in the gully. And so when you're walking out in the water, you kind of have your expectations about what you're going to see. And there was this relatively pretty big bird down the net lane, and you could see it in the mist net, and all I could see was this fan tail. And I'm thinking, oh, it's a big bird, it's a duck. Why is the duck in the mist net? And then of course, you know, your brain starts to catch up, and ducks don't have large fan tails. It was a merlin, and it was a little cranky, and it was a two-person job to get that guy out. Laurel helped. So that was probably the most shocking bird. The rarest bird, let's see. It probably was the red-breasted nuthatch for this year. Last year, our rarest bird was the western palm warbler. That was the 5th western palm warbler ever banded in Alaska. But we didn't have anything incredibly surprising. There's always a chance we could catch something like a common yellow-throat or Tennessee, the palm warbler, but we just didn't happen to catch one this year.
Hey, Claire, why do you think you didn't catch any alder flycatchers?
Well, they're one of the, is this Sue?
Yes.
It's good to hear your voice. I think one of the reasons potentially why is they're one of the first migrants to leave every fall. They're the last in, the last out. They're here for a very short time. They breed and they leave. And they're often we see our last one by the 2nd week in August, and there'll be some maybe through the end of August. But I mean, they peak early August, and we didn't really start operating till August 3rd. And so it's possible that we just kind of started a little late to kind of catch the real window of migration. But there's a bigger story there. Alder flycatchers have been declining in capture rate at the station since the beginning. So maybe that's part of the story. Insectivores are declining globally, so that's another element. But I would suspect why we didn't even catch one might be just because of when we started.
Okay, thanks. It's just that I heard so many, it seems, all summer long.
Yeah, and that's why, you remember doing incidentals at the station. So when we're at the station, we also keep a running bird list of everything we see and hear throughout the day. And when we were at the station, we heard alders frequently, and they weren't uncommon. So in some ways, it was surprising that we heard so many and didn't catch one, but they were there. I'm just seeing your notes, Rick. That's really awesome that they'll come to your hand. I'd love to have you come back up. We don't know what's happening next year. Everything's still a little up in the air in terms of what's going on with the pandemic, but we're really hopeful and making plans and looking forward to having people back out at the station again.
I have a question. Hi, it's Hannah from 2018.
Hi, Hannah.
It's nice to see you.
It's nice to hear your voice.
I was wondering if the nets out in the field are catching anything.
That's a great question. They have caught absolutely nothing this year. We didn't even set them up. They were kind of a test run, and I think the total that they caught overall was 4 birds.
Nice.
So they were retired.
And all the gully nets were like able to be run this year?
Yeah, so we did cut a couple. So I don't know if you remember how well you remember the numbers. 23 was up, 22 was closed, and so were 11 and 12. 11 and 12 would have been like the furthest forward nets where it was kind of deep. It was a little too deep to set those up. So yeah, there were some nets we didn't set up this year because the pond was so deep and stayed deep.
Wow.
you guys have any questions. Yeah, actually, I'd like to pose a question for Laurel. What was the most shocking bird you thought that we caught this season?
Well, not really shocking, but it was new for me, and that was the pine siskin.
Oh, yes.
Because they're eruptive, and I hadn't been out at the banding station at a season when a population had moved into our area. And it was fun to see that there was an adult that showed signs of breeding and a young bird that had hatched in Fairbanks.
Yeah, they were very exciting to see. I'll echo that.
So what do you mean by eruptive?
So there usually refers to birds who have a pattern of, instead of like maybe having a kind of steady population level, they go through periods where the population booms and then kind of returns to normal lower levels. So normally there are just like a couple of pine siskins seen around Fairbanks, and this year they were pervasive and very common. And so that's an eruptive characteristic. And sometimes it's also, like for instance, you'll hear people talk about snowy owls. So when it's a really good snowy owl year, they're seen very commonly in the winter in the lower 48. They'll show up all kinds of places, like in South Carolina at the airport, or just places where you wouldn't expect because the population is boomed so large.
Can I ask how you all became involved with the birds, not just with like the station, but are you biology majors? Was it just a thing that kind of you grew into, or what's your background on it?
For me, I grew up loving birds, and I lived in a suburban neighborhood, so I thought if I liked wildlife, that meant I should probably go to vet school. So that was my undergraduate degree, but while I was going to school, I started taking wildlife biology courses and found out that was really my calling, my interest, and I stayed on and got a master's in wildlife biology, and I've just kind of focused in working with birds. So that's my background. Trisha's background is a little different. She has a strong education focus and maybe can speak to that. Laurel's worked with Fish and Wildlife Service, but I don't know about her spark moment.
This is Laurel. I, like Claire, grew up crazy about birds, was always collecting feathers, looking for nests. Got a degree in environmental interpretation, which was biology with communication skills. And my career was mainly teaching teachers and kids through the Fish and Wildlife Service, and then just got really, really excited about banding later.
But I just want to say that I found your guys' videos halfway through the summer. I got into the birds. I work in an office. I work for a state division, so I have a really boring life now. I got into birds as a photography thing to kind of make, if you can photograph birds, you can photograph anything. It's a lot of, just a lot of stalking, a lot of frustration. But I caught your stuff at the beginning of the summer and was just absolutely hooked. And you guys really helped me go out and try to find more birds to capture. And I watch your videos every time they come up. I've got the alert set, and I just want to thank you guys for that.
Thanks, Rick. That's super awesome feedback. I can definitely relate to how difficult it is to get a good photo, and admire your interest in that. We always need good photos. So if you are ever around and able, I'd love to have your help with that.
That's my goal next summer, to come up and volunteer, because I live in the Mat-Su. Come up and volunteer for like a week or two and kind of bring my 500 millimeter and kind of go out and get dirty and take pictures. I stalked a ruby crown kinglet for about, I don't know, 6 weeks. I stalked one spot where I saw him before I could capture it. So I'm all about, super excited and all about coming up to volunteer.
That would be awesome. We would love to have you.
This is Susan. I noticed on the videos that Laurel seemed to get all the birds that like to peck her.
I will say that Laurel did ask for it. She wanted to practice aging woodpeckers. They're notoriously difficult. They kind of have some complex molt strategies, and she did an amazing job. So she did, yes, she got all the birds.
Okay.
But I will say that we all handled quite a few chickadees, and they are master cuticle removers. So
Claire's the only bander who had to have a bird removed from her hand. That was the Merlin.
that's true. Yeah, so adding on to that story where the Merlin was in the mist net, I thought the Merlin was otherwise occupied, and I went to go grab his feet, and he grabbed me instead. And luckily Laurel was on the trail, and she was a little confused about why I needed help extracting one bird, but she understood when she walked up and saw his talon in my hand. So.
So I have another question. Do you think there was any difference this year that might be attributed to a decrease in the activity of people because of the pandemic?
There were definitely less people. I mean, I would guess there were less people, but we still saw lots of people walking the trails of all ages and backgrounds, families, people still running, dog walking, mushroom picking. It was actually kind of nice to see some of that normal behavior. Yeah, because it can be really easy to stay inside when things are like this. So it was nice to see people out and about, and it was really awesome. I know it was really hard to not have visitors to the station this year, but we really appreciated how polite and respectful everyone was. It was pretty great.